Oh, this is Tom Leineke. I'm here with Ed Batista from Attention Trust, and we're on Ashbury Avenue in San Francisco, right home of the Summer of Love, Hate Ashbury District, I guess. And Ed's the president of Attention Trust?
Executive Director.
Executive Director, excuse me. And I've been playing with it in the Uplift Academy. We'll talk about that towards the end of how you can look at it. But I thought I'd ask Ed a little bit on how is it going along, and what's your vision of what the Attention Trust is doing, and how we might use it in the future?
Basically, anytime we pay attention to something and anytime we ignore something, data is created. Now, typically, we don't have the ability to capture this data and do anything with it. This data is valuable, but the value can only be realized if the data is captured and analyzed. So what if we as individuals could capture this data for ourselves? What if we could record it? What if we could store it locally or share it with a service that would analyze it on our behalf?
Yeah.
What if we could exchange it with other individuals or with institutions that wanted to learn more about what interested us? We would then be full-fledged active participants in this emerging attention economy. And that is basically what Attention Trust has been brought into existence to help create. So our mission is to educate people about the existence of this attention data, to empower people to make effective use of this attention data, and to build a community of organizations and individuals that support the idea that individuals have the right to exert control over their attention data. Right now, the attention data that we generate typically disappears into a company or a government database, and we have no ability to access it, no ability to do anything with it. And what we'd like to do is basically change that relationship so that we as individuals are at the center of this sort of emerging attention economy, and we have the ability to capture this data for ourselves and use it on our own behalf, put it to work for us. So we basically, Attention Trust operates kind of on two different levels. At the very basic, tangible level, we have developed a piece of software, which is a Firefox extension that you download and that you use while you're browsing the web. And it captures certain aspects of your browsing history, your clickstream. You then can save this information locally, and if you're technically minded, you can analyze it yourself. If you're not, you can elect to share it with online services that have been configured to receive data in this format. This basically ensures that you're never going to have to ask some company or some arm of the government to get your attention data back. You're capturing it at the source, and you're going to be able to use it at some point in the future. Now, right now, the services that exist that are configured to analyze this attention data for you are relatively limited, but we expect that number to grow pretty substantially. At a more symbolic level, Attention Trust exists to promote the principle that users should exert control over their attention data. And there are basically kind of four facets of that principle. Property, mobility, economy, and transparency. So property simply means that we as individuals have the right to own at least a copy of our attention data. We should be able to capture this data for ourselves. Mobility means we should be able to store it where we want and move it when we want. So we should have control over what happens to this data and where it goes. Economy means we should be able to exchange this attention data for something that's of value to us. That doesn't necessarily mean a commercial transaction. It could simply mean a non-commercial transaction where we're getting some information or some service back in exchange for that data. And transparency means that we should have some insight into what's happening with our attention data when other people have access to it. So we should be aware of what people are doing with our attention data when we share it with them, so we can make decisions about who to share it with. Let me talk for a second about ways in which I think attention data and services that are powered by attention data are going to transform our experience as individual users. I think they're going to do basically four things. They're going to help us understand ourselves better. They're going to help us connect more efficiently with relevant content. They're going to help us connect with people who share our interests, and they're going to basically allow us to participate as economic actors in this attention economy on our own behalf. So an attention service that I like to talk about in this context as a great example is a kind of a music discovery service called Last.fm. You go to last.fm, you download a plugin, then anytime you play a song on any media player on your machine, it will capture the musical metadata, the name of the artist, the length of the track, how many times you've listened to that song and when, and it will upload it to your Last profile. Now, what this allows you to do is accomplish much of the, many of the things that I just talked about. It'll help you understand yourself better. You'll understand what your musical tastes are in a much richer and more sophisticated way than if you just looked at a series of explicit gestures like purchases. You might buy a CD and hate it and throw it away and never listen to it. Or you might buy a CD as a gift for somebody. It doesn't reflect your tastes.
Yeah.
But if you're relying on implicit gestures, like when you just happen to listen to music on your machine, you will know what you've been listening to and when. You're going to have a much richer perspective on what your musical tastes are. So there are all these ways in which attention data can hopefully transform our experience as individual users. But I think what's really going to make this attention economy work is the idea that we as individuals have a degree of control over the attention data that's being generated. This shouldn't simply be the next generation of behavioral targeting. This shouldn't simply be kind of an evolution of adware or spyware or marketing efforts. This should be a system within which we as individuals have the ability to control who has access to what attention data we are generating. So we're able to make decisions that we feel comfortable with, that give us all a sense of security, that the offers that are going to come our way, whether it's a commercial offer or a non-commercial offer, are ones that we have enabled. They're ones that we've set in motion. I think if the systems that don't give individuals this kind of control over their attention data, I think are less likely to gain traction with users, because I think people are going to feel resistant. They're going to not feel as comfortable that their preferences, that their requirements with regard to security are going to be respected.
I've installed the Attention Trust extension for Uplift Academy, and you can see the data stream at upliftacademy.org/stream. And one of the things that I've noticed is most of the top 10 click sites are other attention processors,
Yes.
ad streams. So it seems like the attention stream is paying attention to itself.
There's an amusing irony in all of that. And there are a couple of, one aspect of that is, right now, the attention recorder, it isn't able to distinguish between foreground and background attention. So if you have a tab open to an application that refreshes, like Gmail, it's going to treat each refresh as a click. It's going to treat it as if you were focusing your attention on that particular application at that moment, even if that's not true. So the tools have to become more sophisticated themselves to accurately reflect our behavior. But there's definitely there's a degree of the watchers watching themselves that is reflected in all of that as well.
One of the things that struck me also was that some of the value that I could see from looking at the stream, as tiny as it is so far, is to know what other people are looking at, and within a community. So within people who are in the Uplift Academy, for example, and it could be any community, to allow me to search within the cloud of websites or search engines that my community is also paying attention to.
Yeah.
And it seems like that would be an interesting feedback loop. So I can now kind of narrow my view of the web to what other people in my trusted network look at. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, we were really thrilled that Uplift Academy expressed some interest in configuring itself as an attention service, so that you are able to kind of promote the idea of downloading the attention recorder to your community members, and then get them to direct the attention data that they're capturing to your service, and then be able to display that back to them. A lot of what I talked about from the in terms of how attention data and attention services are going to transform the user's experience, we're focused more on what the individual might see from his or her perspective. But that's really just the starting point. And I think that these services have the ability to be of even more value in the context of a community of people who are, who have a variety of affinities, and that could be a group like the Uplift Academy community. It could be a work team, a group of people, participating in a project together, a group of colleagues, or even an entire company. It could be a social network, a family, your friends, your soccer league, etc. And I think that the value is that, on the one hand, you do have a degree of interest in just looking at your own attention data. It's going to tell you something about yourself. And at the other extreme, you certainly have an interest in what is the world paying attention to in an utterly anonymized, aggregated way. And a lot of the services that we see today are based on the principle that they're going to rely on entirely anonymous, aggregated attention data with no personally identifying information attached to it to sort of tell you what the world is interested in. The dilemma, though, is that in most circumstances, you're really interested in kind of what a certain group of people are interested in. You're not just interested in what the world is paying attention to, and you're not only interested in what you as an individual are paying attention to. You want there to be some kind of context. So the ability to share attention data within a known bounded community, whether it's Uplift Academy, whether it's a group of colleagues, whether it's your family, is, I think, where the real value is going to lie, and enable us to participate really actively with a network of people with whom we are sharing attention data in a really active way. There's kind of a I like to think of the sort of the really crude version of that right now is, say, your blog roll. So you might come to my website, look at my blog roll, which feels like this creaky old tool a couple of years out of date, and you'll say, oh, okay, I'm interested in some of the things that Ed is interested in. These are some of the writers that he's pointing to. I could click through on some of these links, and because we have some shared interests, there's a chance that I might find something that's of interest to me. But the likelihood of that is really low. The likelihood of you actually landing on an article that was written by somebody who is on my blog roll because of an interest that you and I share is de minimis. And it's a lot of work on your part to actually find the really good stuff. What if instead of relying on a very labor-intensive, kind of explicit system like that, we had an intelligent attention system operating in the background that recognized we had shared interests, we were part of a community together, and as a result made it enabled us to exchange attention data and said to you, hey, Tom, Ed is reading this article that is kind of in his consumption list because of interest that you guys share together. And not only has he read the article, he's clicked through it, but he's actually read the whole thing and he's read it twice. So it's something you are really likely to be interested in. The fact that we are sharing attention data because we are participants in a bounded community, because we're known to each other, is going to make that even more relevant to us. So I think there's a huge value for attention data to transform the way communities and teams of people work together.
And what about actually just selling your attention stream to someone, volunteering to send your clicks to an ad agency or some agency or whatever, and getting a monetary or a coupon or something like that back? Is that in the works, or is it just too easy to get it surreptitiously already?
I think it is easy to get that kind of data surreptitiously, and I think a lot of companies are doing that very effectively now.
Yeah.
But they are also, the whole sort of marketing and advertising world is looking at this with a lot of interest. And so there's clearly hope that there's going to be some kind of commercial attention economy that will evolve, that essentially will enable us to exchange our attention data with marketers, with advertisers, for something that's of value. That could be just kind of a straight dollar exchange. You pay me and I'm going to give you access to my attention data, and you're going to be able to market more effectively to me. It could be a promise on the marketer's part to only deliver relevant ads. So there's this really broad spectrum of what those experiences are going to look like. I also should say I haven't seen anybody who's actually done that quite effectively yet. There's certainly companies and services that are trying to, and there's a lot of interest in it. I think, though, what I'm hopeful will happen is kind of something that Doc Searles talked about. Others have talked about it as well, but he did a really good job of describing this at the closing of the Syndicate Conference in San Francisco last fall, where he said, basically, marketing has to evolve. Right now, marketing is typically something that is, it's irrelevant and it's unwanted. And that's why, as power shifts to the users in all of these different systems, we're finding ways to evade irrelevant, stupid marketing. So, we avoid irrelevant, stupid TV ads by using TiVo. we avoid irrelevant, stupid radio ads by going to XM or Sirius. There are all of these ways in which it's easy for us to get away from that. Marketers, as a result, recognize they need to reach us with stuff that's relevant, with stuff that is going to be of interest to us, and that they are only going to have that degree of knowledge about what we're interested in, what's going to be relevant to us at any particular point in time, if we willingly share that data with them, if they're entering into some kind of contract with us. So it's not about surreptitiously kind of skimming this data and trying to sneakily, in an underhanded way, understand sort of who we are and what we're interested in, and then on that basis kind of push ads to us that we're still likely to find stupid and irrelevant. It's about entering into a much more kind of above-board contract where they basically say, let us have access to your data, and we will transform your marketing and commercial experiences in a variety of ways. And I think ultimately, and this is something that Doc Searle has talked about quite eloquently, we will no longer find ourselves bombarded with stupid, irrelevant ads. Instead, we will sort of make our desires known to the marketplace, and the marketplace will respond with relevant offers. So we're not going to experience marketing as something we're trying to avoid. We're going to experience it as something that is actively responding to our needs. I don't want to sound too idealistic or naive about that. You know, that vision may be a long way off, and we may never get there. But if we do get there, I think attention data is going to play a really important role in that process, and I think that we are headed in that direction. Whether we get there or not is another question.
Yeah, I'm fully sensitive to the market and the value of understanding the market for commercial transactions. The Uplift Academy is looking at ways of applying technology for the I guess you could call it the nonprofit sector, or humanitarian, or charitable, or I like to call it the transformational sector. But could you, and I know you have a background in nonprofit management, you talk a little bit about your background, and then also how you think you might be able to use this for the non-commercial sector.
Sure, absolutely. Just to give you a little info on me, I've spent pretty much my entire career working with nonprofits. Started out with organizations serving homeless and low-income families in San Francisco, and did that for 7 years. And then over basically the last 7 years, have been working on helping nonprofits use technology more effectively. So my work with Attention Trust is really an extension of kind of putting technology to use for people and helping them make more effective use of it to sort of transform the way they live and work. I actually think that nonprofits are incredibly well positioned to make effective use of attention data, simply because they already have a really close and trusting relationship with these constituencies of users. So from a nonprofit perspective, right now, they typically have a pretty limited understanding of what people, what their donors, what their stakeholders are actually paying attention to, what they're interested in. They may be analyzing what articles people read on the website, or what articles they read in the newsletter, but that's pretty superficial, and it doesn't do a real great job of sort of letting them know what people are really interested in beyond the confines of their sort of specific engagement with them. What I could easily envision is a nonprofit that has a good relationship with its constituencies, to be able to go to those constituents and say, if you would use this piece of software to capture aspects of your attention data and then direct that attention data to us, share it with us, it would enable us to do our mission much more effectively. So in essence, you'd be making a contribution to us, and there would be all sorts of value that could be realized as a result. The nonprofit would know a lot more about what people are interested in, beyond the confines of the nonprofit's website or its newsletters or other content that the nonprofit itself generates, and would know kind of in the world at large, what are its donors, what are its clients, what are its other stakeholders paying attention to. That would allow the nonprofit to start to sort of direct its resources and its energies appropriately. And it would be, in essence, kind of a way for you as an individual donor to help the organization without even writing a check. You'd be contributing your attention, which would have both monetary and non-monetary value. So I think the fact that a nonprofit can go to these constituents and say, if you will share this attention data with us, you're going to help us do a better job of making the world a better place. It's a very different value proposition than a marketer going to an individual consumer saying, I'll cut you in on the, I'll sort of transform your marketing experience, or I'll give you a piece of the pie. I mean, I think that's a proposition people may respond to as well. But I think nonprofits are really well positioned to kind of go even beyond that.
Where you stand right now is pretty technical, and I'm sure almost unintelligible to most normal users. You'd have to be pretty geeky to install it and use it, or even see the value of the data in its raw form. So it's kind of a Lego kit or something
Yes.
like that you've got in your very early stages of it. You started, your funding was when?
Got funding from the Omidyar Network, which is the sort of the kind of innovative foundation established by Pierre Omidyar, the founder of eBay, in the spring. And they invest both in for-profits and nonprofits with an emphasis on personal empowerment. So they're looking to figure out how can we where are opportunities where there's a level playing field, where everybody can participate, where there's going to be accountability, and they saw us and saw the potential of attention data to basically to empower individuals to act on their own behalf, to capture this attention data and use it as a powerful resource for their own purposes. So there's a real, strong fit between our mission and Omidyar's mission, and I'm hopeful that that relationship will continue.
So you're building the Lego blocks right now, and you have a part of one block built, if you will.
Yes.
Can you speculate on how the blocks might fit together, or what are there other players in this field now that are either building other blocks or Tinker Toys or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. And it's really important to recognize this is very early stage, and everything that we're doing right now, it is aimed at at people who are more technically inclined, and we recognize that for this to be relevant for average users, it's got to become less technical. It's got to essentially become part of the ecosystem, part of the world in which they're living. And I think what we're ultimately hoping to see, is a world in which people are, even if they are not intentionally directing their metadata streams, the attention data that they are capturing, to and they're, even if they're not analyzing it in a specific way, because a lot of people are never going to reach that point, they at least understand that their online activities and the ways in which they are paying attention to things is essentially a way in which they are expressing themselves. It's a voice that they have, and that what we want to do is that to allow them to express themselves purposefully, so that they can basically receive some kind of value in return, and ensure that voice, that expression of themselves, isn't just being sort of lost into the ether, or being monopolized, captured by a company and used only for the company's own good. And for that to happen, we need a much larger and more comprehensive attention economy and attention ecosystem to develop, so that people aren't asked to download a separate piece of software that plugs into their browser. I think the next big step in this is kind of the integration of an attention service with the browser. And we developed the current version of the attention recorder for Firefox, both because it was easy technically, and because Firefox consists of the sort of the Firefox development and user community is inclined to, I would say more inclined than for other browsers, to look at an extension like this and see the value. So it was a kind of a shorter conceptual leap that those folks had to make. And we've gone the next step by entering into some discussions with Mozilla, the entity that develops and is responsible for the sort of ongoing improvement of Firefox, to see how this attention functionality could be integrated kind of completely into the browser. So if you're a Firefox user, you don't need to go and add this separate extension. It's simply going to be there. It's going to be part of your browsing experience. And as you browse, you'll be able to capture this data, or not, if that's your choice, and it'll be just sort of fully integrated into your browsing experience. Now, we've just begun those discussions. No idea where they're going to lead, no idea what the timetable is, but we're really encouraged by Mozilla's willingness to sit down and talk with us, and their interest in the idea of attention transforming users' experience.
One of the other blogs that we have around here, I'll link to on the video, is called Word of Blog, and Matt Turk is his name, and he has another interview from yesterday, I think. But he has a badge model where you can create a badge for your nonprofit and put it on your website, so you can click on it and go from there. So it's an interesting advertising, if you will, but it's paying attention
Sure.
within a different ecosystem, if
Yes.
you will.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that this ad, or your attention trust, is also kind of related to that. And for example, when we talk about having a pattern of uplift that reaches a certain level of editing and it's ready to roll out, we could give it a badge and give it an attention stream,
Sure.
and then let it take off. And that's all part of our pay attention toolkit that we've got on the website also. So these are all just Lego blocks for building this pay attention toolkit, and I'm very impressed with your starting point here, and I'm looking forward to working with you in any future evolution of it, and happy to share what our experiences have been. And look forward to seeing what we can do to continue in the future.
Likewise, we're really excited to have Uplift as the sort of first nonprofit or non-commercial partner, kind of sharing the attention recorder with your community members, and we're really just thrilled to kind of see the display of the attention data, and looking forward to working more in the future as well.
Okay, well, people who want to see this, look for upliftacademy.org/stream.